Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today we are discussing B2B versus B2C.
Okay, before we get going, we have an announcement. The Digital Marketing Toolkit Awards are open. So, if you don't know the history of this, essentially, we've had the Digital Marketing Toolkit for a long time. If you ever want to find it, just Google Digital Marketing Toolkit. It will be number one in Google. But we decided that we're going to get you all to nominate tools that you love and you think are great. And you can nominate your own tool. So, if you're a tool vendor, you can nominate it as well. It's broken down into categories. You go targetinternet.com/toolkit. You will find the way of going through and nominating. And you can nominate your tools up until the 17th of July. So you go through, nominate. After that, we'll have a voting period where we'll get all of you listeners to go through and to vote. And then we will have the awards to go through and nominate decide what the best tools are based on everyone's votes as we go through. So if you have a tool that you love, if you own a tool and you want it nominated, targetinternet.com/toolkit. You go in there, you submit it. That will close on the 17th of July. And you can select the appropriate category and so on. So that's a bit of an announcement. And I'm very excited because the awards are these actual physical awards in the shape of a Target Internet logo with their name on them, and they're beautiful.
It's like a proper thing.
It's a proper thing that you can put in your office and put up on the wall.
Golden envelopes.
Yeah.
Can I don a sparkly dress?
I think we should dress up for the award ceremony. I think it's going to be quite, especially for the visual. If you're listening to the podcast, I'll just describe Kieran's outfit. It'll be delightful for you. But yeah, let's move on before we get into Kieran's outfits too much, because I can see this going in all sorts of wrong directions. We are talking B2B versus B2C. And the reason for this, I had a number of emails with people either saying, I love the podcast and I know you work with all these massive brands, but we're a small business. Or, I really love the podcast, but I know you work with all these massive brands, but we're B2B. Or, I love the podcast and you work with all these big brands, but we're B2C. And I'm like, oh, okay.
There's a lot of love, but there.
Yeah. A lot of, you're okay, but. Yeah, I'm not that into you, sorry. Yeah.
Retract that. That just sounds wrong, and I didn't intend.
That's quite all right. It's okay. That doesn't matter.
You know where I was going.
I know you were going with it. The key thing is that the core principles do apply, but I get this in training all the time because you'll get people saying, yeah, but that doesn't apply to us because we're government, or it doesn't apply to us because we're direct to consumer, or it doesn't apply to us. Actually, I would argue most of it does. Not all of it, don't get me wrong. So we want to go through what the key differences are today and just talk about it. But the point I always come back to, whatever you are, is you are actually marketing to people. Even if you're business to business, you're talking to people inside that organization. It might be multiple people. There might be lots of different decision makers. It might be that your tone of voice is different. It might be that the buying cycles are much longer, but you're still marketing to people. And you need to think about it from their perspective. And the risk here is, well, B2B, all we're going to talk about is our products and services. It's like, still at the top of the funnel, I don't care about your product and your service. I have day-to-day problems in my job and my career that I need you to kind of help me with from that point of view as well. So is it different? Yeah, it is different. The user journey is different, but the user journey is different for every product, every service, every scenario, and it's changing all the time anyway. So I would say there's more of a similarity, and I think and this is not from the people that emailed in because they had some really great questions, but you quite often get it when you're on a course where people will just go, this isn't for me, switch off, right? And I've been guilty of it. So Instagram comes along, you go, that's not for us, we're B2B. And then suddenly it is for us. And TikTok, that's not for us, we're B2B. Oh, actually it is now. And so on. And it's the case. Or you say, we're B2C, LinkedIn doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't in terms of getting to your direct customers, but actually your relationships and all those kind of things is still important. So I think you need to try and be open-minded about this.
Open your mind.
Yeah, and just think, what could I learn from this that I might be able to apply in a slightly different way for my organisation as well?
It's almost a little mental tick you need to develop. That the moment you hear your head saying, oh, that's not for me because, that is the moment that you should embrace it and play the little game of
3 whys.
If I had to use this, like if my life depended on my children's life depended on it, how would I use it? And just by playing devil's advocate and forcing yourself to take a look at it, I've found very often actually that opens my eyes, because if my eyes are closed, I'm not going to see it. And actually I could now be blind to the best opportunity that's just come my way, and I didn't take it because I wasn't an early enough mover and adopter, and I didn't explore what the possibilities were.
Let's talk about that. So the 3 whys I talk about is, you say, this isn't for me. You go, why? And I go, well, because it's not used by our audience. Well, why are they not using it? Well, because they haven't really got there yet. Oh, so maybe they're going to get there. So you ask the why 3 times. The other thing is that first lead advantage, right? Which is, we know that if you're an early YouTuber, it was easier to get that kind of critical mass. If you got into podcast early, like we did, like 12 years, is it 12 years?
13 years now.
13 years we started this podcast. I can't believe you've been listening to me for 13 years. You must be exhausted.
No, I've been listening to you longer because I was listening to you for about 6 years before.
In the internet marketing podcast.
Daniel was like my go-to expert. I bought my first iPod.
And now the student has become the master.
Just so I could listen to you more easily, because I was burning I was burning Daniel onto a CD, an audio CD, so I could listen to it in my car.
That was amazing.
I seem to remember as well, didn't you not have a CD player in your car? No, and you had to have one of those things that was a tape.
Yes.
It's a cassette tape. Yes. You wouldn't even remember this, right?
No.
It's a cassette tape with a wire coming out of it that went into a CD player. So you'd stick it into your cassette player, and then you'd fool it into thinking a cassette was playing, but really a CD was playing.
That's commitment.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I've still got it. I still use it.
Wow. That's amazing.
Not for you.
Yeah, exactly. You just listen to the old recordings of me and just go, oh, those memories. Anyway, we digress. I forgot even where we were going with this now, where you confused me.
B2B versus B2C.
Yeah.
Let's get back on track.
Let's get back on track. So the key thing here is to kind of say, if the first lead advantage, which is where I was going with this, is that, early podcast, you had the opportunity to get into the charts, get critical mass. TikTok was the same kind of thing, and so on. So actually, if you do open your mind, test things out, you've got to have a lack of risk aversion. You've got to be willing to try stuff out. So your brand, quite often B2B brands are a little bit more staid, a little bit, we must be professional, completely agree with that. But I'd also say one thing that we've learned is personal professional is really effective. The stat I keep quoting, and I don't know where the source of this is now, so this is maybe a made-up Daniel stat, which does occasionally happen.
Don't put it in any assignments.
Yeah, let's go through. It is, you're 12 times more likely to engage with an individual than you are a brand. This was actually a Chartered Institute of Marketing quote originally. I'll try and find the source. And the point was that if, Target Internet posts something, great, but if Louise posts something or Kieran posts something, I'm more likely to engage because there's that human connection. So you are still dealing with people. Your internal brand ambassadors become really important from that point of view as well. But you're still marketing to people, and you've got that first lead advantage, potentially, if you have an open mind to doing these things sometimes as well. So actually saying we are a corporate brand, but we are willing to have 2 different slightly brand voices. There's the main corporate brand voice, but here's the voice of our advocates. And that will have a slightly different tone to it. So you need to have a little think about that. And that needs to really be built into your social media guidelines quite often as well from that point of view. Now, what this really comes down to is 2 things. Who's your target audience? And what does the user journey look like? So we've got that persona user journey thing, which is the standard thing anywhere. But also, what's your desired end conversion point? Very often in a B2C, we've got 2 situations. There's one, which is the conversion point is the sale that happens on the website. It's kind of e-commerce, transactional. I want you to go and buy something. So it's quite a transactional journey potentially. But also you might have I want to drive you to somewhere physical. I want you in my dealership. I want you in my shop. I want you to visit my country, whatever it might be. So you need to think about that desired outcome. Whereas more often than not in B2B, you've got lead generation. I want you to get in contact with me, but the actual conversion is going to happen somewhere later on down in the journey. They're not that dissimilar, really, because it's like, I want you in my shop. I want you to pick up the phone to me, whatever it might be. You've got to work out which percentage of your journey is happening online. And is that journey going from the very, very beginning at the top of like see, think, do, care, see, through to care and loyalty? Or are there bits that will be offline in that journey?
It is undoubtedly harder for B2B businesses to market using digital channels, in my opinion.
Do you think?
Yeah. And I'll tell you why I think that.
I'm not sure I agree.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Because you do both, so yeah, I'd be really
interested. I do both. The reason why I say it's more difficult is because there's a lot more touch points and a lot more people involved. Therefore, it's harder to measure. It's just harder to measure and harder to get those kind of outcomes, especially when you very often, like very big B2B organization. Let's say I make jet engines.
Yeah, okay.
Like very small niche of audience that are going to be interested in buying a jet engine. Normally we buy the jets that the engines have been put into, right? So you've instantly got a tiny group of people. How are we going to measure the impact of our digital marketing on that? Like what channels are we going to use? And that is different.
It
It's
is,
very,
but I would say a
different.
CRM helps you untangle it, right?
Yeah, yes, it does. And also, you can't play we can't do that because you have to look at it from the other side of the card and go, well, if we had to do that, how might we do it? You've got to ask, well, who else in our space is doing something on that channel and what have they done? And is it amazing or does it suck? Like these are the questions. And not only that, who else, like what other companies or brands out there are servicing a very similar audience to whoever? It might be doing completely different things, but similar audience. And what have they done? And do we think it rocks or does it really, really suck? Like, these are all the questions that you ask to sort of explore those avenues. But I definitely know from speaking to lots of people on the training courses, it is a lot harder when it comes to measurement because with digital, you know, there aren't, you can't measure everything, definitely.
Yep.
And
more and more so, yeah.
And generally you do need a lot of aggregated data to get a pattern. You know, when I'm marketing to maybe like 50 people in the country that might want to buy my products.
But if that's the case,
services.
I mean, this is the other thing I would argue with this as well. We say, well, it's harder because there's not enough of them and we won't get as much data. It's like, yeah, but if there's 50 of them, you could just do account-based management. You just literally speak to those people individually. You go, I need to speak to John Smith. Right, let's be a lot more specific. Maybe this is a different form of marketing. And actually, it's going to be really personal, but I can almost do it on a one-to-one basis. I mean, we're
how amazing is that?
Yeah.
Like, what B2C brand wouldn't absolutely kill to do one-on-one marketing?
Yeah.
So, like flip it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's an opportunity, right? It's like, wow, we're really lucky. And actually, I don't hear anybody in the B2B marketing space going, we're really lucky that we're B2B. Normally, we're sort of, the glass half empty. It's really hard. No, actually, no. We need to flip it. We need to keep it positive.
So I think with B2B as well, it's, you know, there's a lot more of a workflow involved, there's more people involved, and you've got to make sure that you're ticking certain boxes that business requires. Whereas with B2C, it's a lot, people act on their emotions
Impulse.
more. So you can use social media,
point.
you can use the digital channels to try and get them to persuade them.
Although, yeah, that is a really good point. But what I would also say is I remember some research from years ago, we still make B2B decisions on an emotional basis, but the emotion is different, right? So there's a lot of impulse in, I'm gonna buy that pair of running shoes, or I'm gonna get that gadget. I mean, the amount of impulse stuff that I just buy on Instagram is just incredible. The stuff I get stuff through the door, I'm like, when did I order a jaw exerciser? A jaw exerciser. Like, I see some stupid Instagram videos, get bombarded by them. I'm like, I need a thing that I do in the shower to do, and just ridiculous stuff, right? So
is that your secret?
That's why I look like this. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't work, clearly. Yeah, exactly. I've never been accused of having a chisel jaw, that's for sure. So the thing here is that it's a different emotion, right? And that emotion is quite often risk adversity. I don't want to make the wrong decision. So that's part of it sometimes. Like,
And
if
it's
I work for a
also,
company.
it's like a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas purchasing from a business as a customer might be more transactional.
Yeah, that's very true.
If you're doing B2B, that's someone that you're going to have an ongoing relationship with.
But I also think the B2C opportunity is that it's transactional, but then have more transactions because keeping a customer is better than having to pay for a new one, right?
In a lot of cases, you've got a proper relationship. There's more of a relationship there.
Yeah, I mean, B2B, you are. Target Internet's
cream.
B2B, right?
Yeah.
And I know that we have two types of customers. We call one B2C and B2B, but it's not B2C. It's still an individual buying our product, but they are still within a business a lot of the time. So we'll do stuff like persuade your boss. Like, you know, you want to sign up for this thing, here's a kit to help you because we're on your team, we're on your side. So it's that positioning is slightly different. And then on the big B2B, you know, if a big brand comes along and they've got, 5,000 marketers globally, we will be account managing that and we will know them. And I will undoubtedly, I'll be having Zoom calls at the very least, but I probably met them face to face and so on as well. So that's a different beast as well.
And you're definitely trying to influence a whole team of people, not just one. And that's just harder.
Yeah, and I think you need to acknowledge that. And what you normally have is an advocate. There's normally someone that wants your product or your service, and you need to give them the tools and bring them into your kind of team.
It's so true. And very often there's someone else that has a strong relationship with another vendor, and they don't they fight for it like you would fight for your friends sometimes. Like, I've seen that happen.
Well, we've seen it. So we come up against a kind of standard set of competitors fairly regularly. No one quite does the same stuff as us. So that's great because we can position ourselves slightly differently. But you go, how do you differentiate then? And it's like, well, brand has a big impact on that. I mean, product is very much a thing for us. But you need to then say, who are our competitors? What's great about our product that theirs hasn't got? And then give the potential buyer the kit to go, look, they do this, they don't do it. Give them a comparison table, show some evidence to kind of back it up and actually give them the stuff they need for an internal conversation to persuade other people. The other thing is you really need a CRM system that's going to flag up for you that you've had multiple people from the same company visiting your website. Because the risk is you're looking at stuff and you have different people and you're triggering stuff out to them, and then you go, oh, we've had 7 different people from that one company on the website. We hadn't even noticed. It's only if your CRM is set up to trigger that stuff automatically that you will notice it. So you've got to be kind of careful of that. There's lots of tools out there, always made me laugh, where they do this reverse IP lookup thing, right? So they say, well, we can tell you what companies have been on your website. And it is useful from that point of view. But if you're like, there's been 10 people from Microsoft on your website. It's like, right, quick, call Microsoft. Hi, someone in your company's been on my website. Can you just put me through to them? It's like, it's not going to work, right? So it's more from the point of view of you going, if I do have one of those tools, okay, I've got those people coming through. What am I actually going to do with that? How am I going to action it? And that's why on the B2B side of things, even more than the B2C, you want to get people's email addresses, not to email them. You don't need to opt in, but so you can at least go, who's on my website? What are they doing? What are they looking at? And then start to understand that you've got multiple people from the same company. So that whole gated content, I will give you something in exchange for something, really great offers, free stuff, all that kind of thing is really important. Also, just like B2C, understanding their pain points, so that at the top of the funnel, before they're even thinking about your stuff, you can give them stuff that's useful. You're building a relationship. And there's a stat I mentioned before, which is all about the fact that if you've been exposed to a brand previously, and we were talking about it via a podcast, when you actually go to the website, you're a lot more likely to convert. So actually, if I can build that relationship and you're not even thinking about it, and then when you're coming to, I need this thing, we see this via the podcast a lot, right? So people will listen for years, and then they go, oh, I need to train my team. I trust that. I trust those people. I'll get in contact with them. So you've done the pre-work, you've done that build-up, and we've seen that cumulatively. But it's a big investment up front in order to do that kind of stuff as well.
In a way, I think B2C marketers can be a lot lazier, because for most B2C businesses, there's always more customers.
Because it's as big a numbers, yeah, okay.
It's huge. Whereas B2B, you don't.
If I burn people, they're not going to come back.
And again, with B2B, I think your reputation spreads even quicker. Because again, it's a much smaller pool. Much smaller pool. Look,
which is a benefit and a challenge.
And a curse,
yeah, that's it.
Sure.
So I think you've got to think about multiple decision makers. The buying cycle duration, like if you are specifying a part for a jet engine, that could be 5 years, 10 years. I can't keep saying to you, buy our stuff, because it's profoundly annoying. So that's why I need to think that flow of content that's going to kind of go through. And you have to really think about your content marketing. And I think a lot of people get this wrong. And also, students, when they're studying, get their head around this. The top of the funnel seems to confuse people. It's like, right, bottom of the funnel is our product stuff. Up the funnel is the topic area. Top of the funnel is broader stuff about our products. No, it's not. It's about just the problems your target audience has. So, we don't talk about different types of e-learning and online learning. We talk about digital marketing best practice, because that's the pain point that our target audience has got. How can we assist them? How can we keep them up to date with that stuff? And you see an awful lot of what's supposed to be top of funnel content, which is, someone selling a CRM system, compare the top 5 CRMs. That's middle, bottom of the funnel. It's not top of the funnel at all. So I think that's the mindset you need to really elevate what you're going to talk about, and make sure that you understand what are the pain point questions that I can answer? How can I make myself useful? And sometimes that's difficult because you're having to talk about things that aren't your core business. So you need to bring some subject matter experts in to potentially go through and do that stuff as well. But the funnel still applies. But in B2B, you're going to spend a lot more time at the top and the middle of the funnel. You're not just diving straight in. And actually in B2C, you can get away with just direct to the bottom of the funnel. Here's my amazing product. Here's a video of this mind-boggling jaw exerciser that's going to cost you $30 and just a bit of rubber, okay? And whatever it might be. And actually, I can just wow you with the product and say, people like you need this thing. Whereas B2B, really it doesn't. B2B doesn't work like that. I'm going to give you. It comes in 3 different strengths. Yeah. I'll give you one. So the reality is, there's great similarities, but you need to work out what those slight differences are from that point of view.
I'm reminded of the awful moment when I discovered that I'd pushed, this was for Target Internet, I'd pushed a Facebook ad live promoting the podcast to people who'd visited our website and a lookalike audience. Right. Oh. And I think, unfortunately for me, the episode was all about some obscure element of CRM.
Okay.
Right. So it was a blog actually that we'd done, and this thing just like auto promoted it, and I had the people and we got absolutely flamed people are going, call yourself Target Internet. Why on earth would I want to know about this?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not very
that was it, wasn't
targeted.
it?
It's
I remember this. Yeah,
oh,
right.
Absolutely flamed. And I think, so some of the things that it's making me think, actually, that sort of exploring this, actually, we probably do need to be more mindful and to try and think, moving forward on the B2B side of things and what any angles or elements are. Because, something like that, we could go on about retargeting, lookalike audiences, something we talk a lot. But actually, when you're marketing to much smaller audiences,
lookalike audiences don't necessarily work.
It's very niche. So I do that on my jet engine,
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, just because I like digital marketing doesn't mean any of my friends want to hear about digital marketing. I'm not pretty fed up with it. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's very true. You've got to be careful of some of those tools. This is where a single customer view really helps you. Your joined up data, your CRM system, because then you've got that first party stuff that you can really hone in. And I have realized as well, it's very easy to broadcast stuff out, but actually one-to-one makes a big difference. I've been playing around with Loom quite a lot. Loom is one of those platforms that allows you to create little videos and then do a GIF of that video and put it into an email. And what I'll do is I'll make sure I don't use the tools where you can mail merge them. So you can go through and you can change the graphic on the screen, but it's one same video for everyone. It's literally, I will have something, I'll have their website on the screen.
Hi, Paula.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like, that doesn't sound quite right. And I'll literally have their website on the screen and I'll make a video exclusively for that person and I'll send it through to them. The hit rate is incredible because if I get, I've just reviewed your website and think you could do X, Y, and Z, and we think, it's like, oh, okay, there's some actual practical stuff in there. And they've taken the time to bother recording a little email. I wasn't sure, and our managing director wasn't sure about if this was a bit cheesy, like getting a video email. And I actually thought, whenever I've got them, I've watched them. I don't think there's a single occasion when I've got a video when I haven't actually watched it.
Well, you're interested, aren't you? You're nosy to find out what.
That's it.
Plenty of email. We get hundreds of podcast pitches, don't we? But I've only ever had one that did a video.
Right, there you go. Don't say this. This is awful. I'm going to get loads of videos now. By the way, we get these. I reckon I get 30 or 40 a day now. Hi, I'd like to pitch this person to you. And it's like, okay, sorry, we don't even answer them anymore. It's got to that point, sadly. I mean, the occasional one we will. If something is original, but what I don't like is when people, it's awful, when they're trying to be funny, right? I get an email saying, I watched this episode and I thought blah, blah, and it's just like, you're not funny. This isn't amusing.
I find them very funny, but then I stick them in junk.
Yeah, there you go, right? So
the person that I had when I didn't get back to them and they responded to me a couple of days later and asked if I'd fallen over and if I needed help getting back up.
Oh, no, but there's lots of those and they're auto sequences.
It was a template,
it worked out,
wasn't
it was a HubSpot template. We hadn't even realised, yeah. And,
they were really worried about me.
Yeah, really worried. So worried they used the template out of HubSpot. Yeah. So I think that you have got the opportunity of being more one-to-one, but if there's only 100 people or 50 people, why are you mail merging it? Just take 10 minutes and send something to someone that is actually personal. The other thing is, like, with LinkedIn, everyone just goes through and says, pitches stuff at you. And it's like, actually, you haven't even done the research, right? So the fact that you can go off, look someone up, see what they've been writing about, see what they've published online, see where they were working previously, what their hobbies are, all that kind of thing. You can find some commonality and some common ground in there potentially as well, as opposed to just broadcast when you've only got a small target audience. So I think this B2C, B2B, they both have pros and cons. And I think that you need to play to the advantage of the particular audience you're going for, but don't discount any particular audience from that point of view as well. So we would love to hear your B2B and B2C experience. Just a reminder, the nominations are open for the Digital Marketing Toolkit Awards, targetinternet.com/toolkit. Nominate your own tools, get in those things that you love in there as well. And then we're going to open up the judging after the 17th of July. So you've got until the 17th of July to get those in. We will be announcing it all live on a podcast. You will get your actual prize that goes through. You get your award, and then we're going to be giving a load of promotion. So it's a really good opportunity to get your tool promoted from that point of view as well. As ever, thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast, and we will see you next time.
Please subscribe for more videos like this and visit targetinternet.com for more free digital marketing resources.